There comes a time in many lives when the heart grows quiet, not at peace but hollow, where connection feels distant, where emotions seem dulled, not because they disappeared, but because somewhere along the way, you learn to turn them off. This isn't weakness. It's adaptation, a silent survival strategy written into the human mind. Emotional detachment, it sounds cold, but it's rarely born from coldness. It's often the mind's way of saying enough. Enough pain, enough confusion, enough of feeling everything too much. So it builds walls, invisible, intricate, perfectly designed to keep you functioning when life feels unbearable. And yet, those same walls that protect slowly begin to isolate. Pause. Breathe. We begin here. In psychology, emotional detachment is often described as a coping mechanism, a self-protective process that numbs emotional intensity. But beneath that simple definition lies something more profound, a hidden architecture of the human psyche, balancing between vulnerability and survival. Think of it like this. The human brain is wired for connection, but it is also wired for safety. When the world becomes unpredictable, when love turns to loss, when trust becomes betrayal, when chaos overwhelms logic, the brain activates an emergency switch. It doesn't ask permission. It simply says, I'll feel later. For now, I must endure. And that's how detachment begins, not as a choice, but as a neurological event. The limbic system, your emotional core, slows its signals. The prefrontal cortex takes control, focusing on tasks, routines, survival. Cortisol rises, dopamine drops, and the chemistry of emotion rewires itself to function in minimal mode. You still live, you still move, but the inner colors fade to grayscale. Many people who experience emotional detachment describe it not as sadness, but as absence. The absence of feeling, of motivation, of connection, even with themselves. They say things like, I know I should feel something, but I don't. I laugh, but it feels like acting. I care, but it's distant, like I'm watching from the outside. This is not depression, though it often walks alongside it. It's the body and mind in quiet rebellion, refusing to drown in emotion again. The paradox is this. The mind that detaches is not broken. It's brilliant. It learned that too much feeling was dangerous, so it rewrote its own operating system. But in protecting you from pain, it also hid you from joy. Imagine the heart as a room once filled with sound. Over time, the echoes became overwhelming, so you closed the door. Now it's silent, safe, predictable. But silence, if kept too long, becomes its own kind of noise. Many who detach feel a strange longing, not to feel happy, but to feel something. And this longing, this quiet ache, is the first whisper of awakening. It means the system is ready to thaw. Modern psychology connects emotional detachment to early emotional conditioning. Children raised in chaotic or emotionally inconsistent environments often learn to disconnect as a way to maintain control. If affection came unpredictably or anger came too often, the mind learns. Feeling deeply leads to pain, so it begins to feel less. Over time, this response becomes automated. The adult may not even realize they are detached until relationships feel flat, goals feel meaningless, and life itself feels like an echo. But here's the truth. Detachment can be undone. Not by force, not by trying to feel more, but by relearning safety. When the mind trusts again, emotion follows. When a nervous system learns that vulnerability won't destroy it, the heart begins to open cautiously but sincerely. Let's explore this slowly. First, realize that feeling and reacting are not the same. Many people fear emotion because they mistake it for chaos. But emotion, when observed calmly, is simply information. It tells you where you stand in relation to your needs. Anger signals a boundary crossed. Sadness points to loss. Fear warns of danger. Love signals safety. To feel these without being ruled by them, that's emotional mastery. That's awareness, not weakness. So the journey begins with one simple practice: allowance without engagement. When emotion arises, don't resist it. Don't drown in it. Just notice it, the texture of it, the temperature, the movement within you. Name it softly. Then breathe. The naming activates the prefrontal cortex, bringing thought to feeling. The breathing regulates the vagus nerve, calming the body. Together, they bridge the mind and the heart. This is where detachment begins to melt. Now imagine doing this not once, but daily. Your nervous system begins to relearn trust. It realizes, I can feel and still be safe. And that realization changes everything. Slowly, the walls soften. You begin to notice small shifts. Music feels richer, colors seem brighter, conversations carry meaning again. You stop performing calmness and start becoming it. This is not quick. Healing never is. But every moment you stay with what you feel, instead of fleeing from it, you reclaim a part of yourself that had gone silent. Now pause for reflection. Ask yourself quietly, when was the last time I truly felt something without fear of breaking? When was the last time I allowed myself to cry, to love, to be moved without restraint? Notice what arises. That awareness is the door. So the journey begins with one simple practice, allowance without engagement. When emotion arises, don't resist it. Don't drown in it. Just notice it, the texture of it, the temperature, the movement within you. Name it softly. Then breathe. The naming activates the prefrontal cortex, bringing thought to feeling. The breathing regulates the vagus nerve, calming the body. Together, they bridge the mind and the heart. This is where detachment begins to melt. Now, imagine doing this not once, but daily. Your nervous system begins to relearn trust. It realizes, I can feel and still be safe. And that realization changes everything. Slowly, the walls soften. You begin to notice small shifts. Music feels richer, colors seem brighter, conversations carry meaning again. You stop performing calmness and start becoming it. This is not quick. Healing never is. But every moment you stay with what you feel, instead of fleeing from it, you reclaim a part of yourself that had gone silent. Now pause for reflection. Ask yourself quietly, when was the last time I truly felt something without fear of breaking? When was the last time I allowed myself to cry, to love, to be moved without restraint? Notice what arises. That awareness is the door. There's also a deeper paradox here. Emotional detachment, when understood, is not the enemy of peace. In its healthy form, it's mindful detachment, the ability to see emotion clearly without being consumed by it. It's not numbness, it's balance. This is what ancient meditative practices called equanimity, to feel deeply, yet remain centered, to experience emotion as energy passing through awareness, not defining it. So perhaps the goal is not to eliminate detachment, but to refine it from avoidance to serenity. You can begin this refinement through simple evidence-based practices. Grounding the body. Place your focus on physical sensations when emotion rises. Notice your feet, breath, and heartbeat. This keeps the prefrontal cortex active, preventing emotional flooding. Mindful labeling. When emotion appears, name it out loud. This is fear. This is sadness. It creates distance without suppression. Reconnection rituals. Engage in small daily acts that stimulate feeling. Music, journaling, or safe conversation. Each moment of connection reawakens emotional circuitry. Self-compassion training. Speak to yourself as if you were comforting a friend. This rewires self-criticism into emotional safety. Breathwork reflection. Inhale for 4 counts, hold for 4, exhale for 6. This activates the parasympathetic system, calming the amygdala's threat response. Every repetition strengthens emotional resilience, not by rejecting detachment, but by integrating it. As you listen now, imagine a mind learning to feel again. Each breath a signal of safety. Each heartbeat a quiet permission to exist fully. Over time, the body begins to trust its own peace. And emotional detachment, once a wall, becomes a window, a space through which understanding enters. In the end, emotional control is not about restraint. It's about awareness in motion. letting emotions come and go like weather, without denying their storms, without clinging to their calm. Because emotions are not problems to solve. They are waves that remind you you're still alive. And when the tide quiets, what remains isn't emptiness. It's clarity. Headphone closing reflection, final insight. Maybe the real mastery of emotion is not in closing the heart, but in learning how to open it wisely. To feel without fear. To love without losing yourself. To detach, not from people or feelings, but from the illusion that you must control them. And in that realization, you return, not to the person you were, but to the one who was waiting behind the silence all along.